This is a Freddo bar. In 1994 it cost 10p. Today it costs 35 pence. That's a 250% increase. The average UK salary in 1994 was £18,000. Today it's around about £35,000, so that's only a 94% increase, which means the chocolate bar has gone up more than twice as fast as your wages. But this isn't really about chocolate. In 1990, the average house in the UK cost £53,000. In 2026, it costs £270,000. That's a 400% increase. In 1993, you needed roughly 3 times your salary to buy the average home. Imagine that. Today, you need 8.5 times the average wage. Your energy bills have doubled. Your weekly food shop has jumped more than 70% in just the last few years, and your wage, it hasn't kept up. You're not imagining it. You're not that bad with money. Even though you're told to simply stop buying coffees and cancel Netflix, cancel Spotify, maybe cancel the gym membership while you're at it, just work out from home. The best money saver nowadays though is to cancel having kids, because they're really expensive. The UK birth rate just hit its lowest point since records began nearly 90 years ago. Not because people don't want children. Research shows preferences for family sizes haven't changed. People just can't afford them. Something structural is happening, and it's been happening for a long time. So here's the question. Why? And actually, before we can even answer that, there's a better question underneath it. One almost nobody asks seriously. What even is money? Because the answer to that question, the real answer, not the one we're taught in school, explains almost everything about why we're standing exactly where we are right now. To find it, we need to go back. Not to the crash in 2008, not to Thatcher in the 80s. We need to go further. Now, you've probably heard of the Rothschilds and how they've manipulated global economies through that thing called central banking, funding wars, taking taxes, all in a day's work. Well, this guy was there before them, and he built the first ever central bank. He called it the Bank of England. Yeah, the same one from today. We need to go all the way back to 1694, and we need to talk about a Scottish merchant almost nobody has heard of. This is William Paterson, and he didn't call it cheating, but in 1694 he did something that changed the rules of money forever. This is what led to you feeling guilty for getting an out-of-budget takeaway. He's actually a fascinating character. Born on a farm in the middle of nowhere, a tiny hamlet in I can't even pronounce it, it's Dumfriesshire, so I think Dumfriesshire, Scotland. Yeah. Anyway, a tiny little village, rural. Yeah, picture Scotland, picture countryside Scotland, picture rolling hills and rugged landscape and isolation in the middle of nowhere. That's what we're talking about. That's where he came from. How does this son of a farmer who leaves home at the tender age of 17 end up in the Bahamas? Scotland to the Bahamas is kind of mad anyway, even by today's standards, never mind back in the 1600s. Historical records describe him as somewhere between a merchant, a preacher and a buccaneer, the kind of man who moved between worlds that didn't usually mix, who understood how money, power and risk actually worked because he'd lived inside all three. By the time he strolls into English government in 1694, he'd spent years in the Caribbean, Amsterdam, Hamburg, Berlin. This guy actually dealt with pirates. He didn't learn about money in a classroom, he learned about it in the Bahamas, rubbing shoulders with men who took what they wanted and built their own rules. Then he walks into English Parliament and does the exact same thing, just this time he's armed with a quill instead of a sword. Because see, he'd noticed something. The most powerful institutions in Europe weren't the ones sitting on the most gold. They were the ones lending money they didn't have and collecting interest on it anyway. In 1694, England was broke, at war with France. The treasury was empty and the king was desperate. Paterson the pirate presented them with a get-out-of-jail card. Picture a man with the charisma of Jack Sparrow, the mind of a chess grandmaster and the flair of William Wallace. Slightly chaotic, not entirely trustworthy, but with an idea so perfectly timed that the greedy, desperate men in that room could not say no. He says, "We'll let private merchants form a bank. We'll call it the Bank of England." The bank then lends the government £1.2 million. The government gets its war. The bank gets a royal charter and a guaranteed interest payment from the crown. There was a problem though. The bank didn't have 1.2 million. What was Paterson's solution to this? Simple. He said, "We just create it. We write the number into existence and begin collecting real interest on money that didn't exist before the moment it was lent." And who pays the interest? The government. And where does the government get its money? From the people, from their taxes. Paterson described it himself. The bank would have the benefit of the interest on all the money it creates out of nothing. Literally out of nothing. That debt was never meant to be repaid, because a government that clears its debt puts the bank out of business. The debt wasn't a problem to be solved. The debt was the product. It was the solution. Let's look at how ridiculous a mortgage really is. The bank doesn't hold the money it lends you. It doesn't exist until you agree to borrow it. Then it charges you interest. A lot of interest. So much interest that for years most of your monthly payments go to paying off said interest, not the actual bricks and mortar. The money only exists once you sign, and yet you're still paying, while the bank profits from something that didn't exist before you made it real with your money. Paterson figured that out way back in 1694. This system did something that hadn't existed before. It did mean that money could be made available quickly, reliably, and at scale in times of national crisis. National crisis like war. It's useful, you might think, stabilizing even. But then stop, step back and ask yourself this. Who decides to go to war? Who profits from it? Then ask yourself, who actually fights and dies in them? Who pays for it through taxes? A king wanted a war and the people paid for it. Not just then. The same debt Paterson created in 1694, it never cleared, it just grew. And every generation since has been born into it, taxed to service it, and never once asked if they agree to it. Look, you pay road tax, the potholes remain. You vote for change, but the policies stay the same. So you switch parties, but surprise, surprise, the cycle repeats. However, they always find money for war, because war was the reason the system was built in the first place. In black and white, your taxes fund the war. The rich get richer, and you feel the squeeze. Think about that for a second. You're pulled into another man's war that he benefits from, while you fund it with your money. Then to add insult to injury, it's not like you get a cut of what you put in through your taxes. Instead, things just get more expensive for you, and life gets harder. It doesn't sound like a very good deal, does it? Not for you anyway. But for kings, parliament and the elite, it was incredible business. Just imagine having unlimited funds to start your own business, at no financial risk to you. Everything to gain, nothing to lose. Instead of starting a business though, you're starting a war, and taking the riches that comes with winning one. As you can imagine, it didn't take long for the rest of the global elite to catch on. Now imagine what happens if you miss your mortgage payments, you lose your house, miss your loan payments, your credit score gets destroyed. Now imagine you turned around and said, it's fine, I'll just create the money out of nothing and everyone else can give me a portion of their money without their consent. You wouldn't get a royal charter, you'd get a prison sentence or a psychiatric evaluation. But that's exactly what William Paterson built a system around in 1694. A system where money can be created first and paid back later by everyone else. It funded kings and their wars, and centuries later, the same principle helped fuel the collapse of 2008 financial crisis on Wall Street. Different century, same rules of the game. And the irony of it is that you're not allowed to do that, but you're okay to bail out the bankers with your actual tax-paid money when they do the same thing. So the next time you're standing in a supermarket doing mental arithmetic over your weekly shop, or talking yourself out of a takeaway, or wondering why no matter how hard you work it never quite adds up, remember the Freddo bar, and remember 1694. What is money? It's a system a pirate built to fund a king's war, and you've been paying for it ever since.